1 Thessalonians chapter 2. Go there with me real quick before we leave this point. 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, Paul is going to talk about the fact that not only do I need to govern what it means to love you by what it means to be faithful to God, my loyalty to him, but sometimes it is my loyalty to God that causes problems with people. It's one of the reasons sometimes there are issues and misunderstandings, because I'm doing what I know God would want me to do in this relationship. That I said the things I know God would have me say because it's the right thing to say. So we need to recognize this. As Paul would put it, just in short, he would say this in Galatians 1:10, how could I be called a servant of Christ if I'm just out to try to please people? Well, it's put well here in a more expanded way in 1 Thessalonians chapter 2. Let's start in verse 2. But though we had already suffered, 1 Thess 2:2, and been shamefully treated at Philippi, right? Why? Because Paul was trying to cause trouble? No, he was doing what was right. As you know, we had the boldness in our God to declare to you the gospel of God in the midst of much conflict. Now, Paul would have been better just to sell his tents and pass out his promotional keychains and tell people, tell your friends about my tent building business. But that's not what he did. He went there to share the gospel, which is to rebuke and exhort and be able to say to people, if you're going the wrong way, turn and put your trust in the only way to be saved. So he's sharing the gospel. That's causing conflict. It caused conflict in Philippi. It even caused conflict as he came to Thessalonica. For our appeal, he says, doesn't spring from error or impurity or any attempt to deceive. Right? Just as we have been approved by God to be entrusted with the gospel, so we speak. Not to please man, but to please God. And again, you're never going to get this point if you don't look over the fence of this life. And that is, God will test my motives when I see him. Right, in the day of the Lord Jesus. That's when I want to make sure that you're going to boast in my motives and my life, and I'm going to be able to boast in you. It's all going to be clarified then. He says, he tests our hearts, and we'll know the test of that, 1 Corinthians 3, 2 Corinthians 5, when we see him, and he evaluates us. For, he says, verse 5, we never came with words of flattery. We weren't there to flatter you, as you know, nor with a pretext for greed. We weren't trying to say the right things so you'd put more in the offering plate. That's not what we did. God is our witness. God knows. My conscience is clear, right? Nor did we seek glory from people, verse 6, whether from you or from others. Love that, and it's very helpful, because if I give you this point, have a praiseworthy motive, and you don't define that by knowing that praiseworthy means praise from God, not from the recipient, but your motive toward other people who have problems with you or misunderstandings about you or people are believing the wrong things about you. I just need you to say, stop and think, okay, I want to do and react and speak and respond out of love, which means it's a kind of love that may even create problems. It may even promote conflict. It's not my goal, because I'm not here to flatter. I'm not here to just make people feel good, but I want to love them. And sometimes we say things that are hard to receive, and sometimes there are things like Paul has done here that have created the conflict that he can say with a clear conscience, my motives are right. You're going to boast of me, I hope, when you see the Lord, because you're going to be there realizing I did what I did out of godly sincerity, and I'm telling you, it was right. It was good. There's going to be conflicts, but I want your priorities to be clear. The ultimate concern is what God thinks of how I'm treating people, and that, is love, and love isn't always responding in a certain way when I feel a certain way. It's always looking out for the good and the interests that others have within the boundaries of God's revelation. All right, now back to our passage. Enough said on that, but let me recognize that Paul is saying this. I'm trying here to get to the place where you're going to be proud of us. I'll be proud of you. But as I summarized here in verse 13, we're saying what we mean and we mean what we say. We're not writing you anything other than what you read and understand. We have no hidden agenda. We're talking to you honestly, right? We're sincere. He's already given us that sense in verse 12. We're not gaming you in any way. And we saw that in 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, right? This isn't about anything but giving you the truth.